Hello, everybody. Daniel Spatz from California. Daniel Spatz Interviews. Another English interview with Pat Harrison, tennis coach from USA. He coached his children, and they became professional tennis players. Ryan became top four in the world in a few years ago, 2017. Pat, and also French Open champion. So it's going to be a coach-to-coach conversation. But again, I'm an interviewer. So I'm not a coach when I'm interviewing, okay? Thank you for your support. Gracias por su apoyo. Hola a todos. English interview. And I'm very excited because I'll always want to listen and learn from the best coaches in the world. I'm going to send the invite, Pat, for you.
Okay.
Pat,
There we go. How are you?
We did it, man.
Yes. Hello, Daniel.
We did it. Look.
Very good. Thanks.
Which ball you like, Penn or Wilson? Or Dunlop, maybe?
I'm a Wilson man.
Man. So I'm going to hold the Wilson to interview.
That's perfect.
But if you can, it's just easier. You're not look too close to the screen.
Sure.
How are you doing, Pat?
Very good, Daniel. Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure. Where are you right now?
I'm in Bradenton, Florida at the moment, and was coaching all morning and just got home, and just same as you, just trying to develop players still and following them around the world at the moment. I've got them all scattered all over the world at the moment.
So for how many years have you been coaching?
I've been coaching, I played in college, picked up some ATP points on back then they were called satellites. I'm 60 years old, so I'm old. I was playing a long time ago when they were actually satellites. So I've been coaching right at 35 years.
35. And why you became tennis coach? What was the motivation?
I just loved it. My father was a famous football coach in America. He had been an All-American football player, quarterback in college at Louisiana Tech.
Oh.
And then he became a head football coach and won some state championships in football. But in Louisiana, they made the head football coaches. As you know, football is a fall sport, and they made them coach a spring sport. So my father took up tennis. And then all five of my brother and my three sisters and I ended up taking up tennis and playing college tennis and then pro tennis as well. And so that was how we got into tennis. My father actually ended up winning 7 or 8 state championships in tennis as well for his high school.
So, Pat, when people watch the Richard Williams movies portrayed by Will Smith, they thought, at least in California, they could coach the kids.
You know what's funny? Richard Williams actually grew up in Shreveport, Louisiana, which is my hometown.
Wow.
He didn't move to Compton, California until he got married and had the kids. But he's actually, and I used to teach 100 yards from where Richard Williams actually grew up. He grew up in Shreveport, Louisiana, before he moved to Compton, California. Wow. Which is where my kids and I started.
Like I always say, it's a very small world, right?
It is. It is. Yeah.
Paul Forsyth joined. Thank you, Paul. You made this possible. Paul Forsyth. He's there. He's in the audience.
And Paul Bunyan.
Yeah. Okay. No. He will probably write something. But anyways,
okay.
Pat. My point was, Paul said, Pat Harrison is the man, he said. So, Pat, my point is the following. People think and feel that coaching their kids is easy. They can even, without being a coaches, professional coaches, they can coach and teach their kids. What would you tell them? I mean, when they're trying to coach their kids without being a tennis coaches,
Well, it's incredibly difficult if you're not a tennis coach. Parents can teach them work ethic, dedication, and things like that. But when it comes to learning the technical aspects and the understanding of tennis, then you need to get somebody with a bit more tennis background that understands, each development phase of the process from from beginner up until, and into the professional level.
Yeah, but I know. But what would you tell? I mean, because they just feed balls to the kids,
Right.
and they think that is coaching, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like they can do that aspect of it, and at the younger ages, the better athletes can win by doing that. But it's more of it, parents that don't really know tennis have to understand you need tennis coaches to continue the proper development as they get into the tournament level and start becoming one of the best players in their state and then region and then the country and then the world.
You have three children, right?
Yes,
Two boys and one girl.
Ryan, Christian, and Madison. Ryan and Christian, most people know.
Mm.
Ryan won the French Open, as you said, and was top 40 in the world in singles, and he's now coaching along with me. Christian is still playing. He's in the semifinals of the doubles challenger with Jonathan Isaac over in Cherbourg. And I'm trying to talk him into playing doubles full time so he can stay healthy. He's qualified for the U.S. Open, Wimbledon, and things like that in the main draw in singles. Won a round at Wimbledon last year in the main draw, but then missed 7 months. He's missed 7 to 8 years of his career with numerous different injuries off and
Mm.
on. And so I'm trying to talk him into just playing doubles and doing that for the next 10 or 15 years because I feel like he could have some good success there. And then my daughter Madison she was an 11 plus UTR when she was at Mississippi State. And she actually played number one at Mississippi State her senior year, played 2 and 3 her sophomore and junior years. And they were top 25 in the country all 3 years she was at Mississippi
She
State.
never played pro.
She played a few tournaments. She actually went and got her master's degree at Santa Clara after she finished at Mississippi
Mm.
State, and she was the assistant coach at Santa Clara for 2 years, and just finished out a year and a half ago. Decided she wanted to try and play, and went and played a few tournaments in Portugal in September, and actually picked up 18 WTA points in doubles, and then pulled her ab and
Mm.
hasn't gotten to play since, and so she's coaching with us as well.
How about your
She's
wife?
never played tennis, so
Oh,
she's the sounding board for, when you grow up coaching your kids, it's inevitable that they are going to be upset with dad about him getting on them on the court. So she's the one they get to vent to.
I understand.
So
I understand. But
there's
how do you deal with that now? Talking as a father coach, professional coach, by the way, right?
right.
Because when you started coaching your kids, you were already a coach.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. I've coached. I played and then I got into coaching, and so I've coached my whole life. And
Yeah. So they how is the how hard was or not to coach your kids?
well, it's difficult. When they're younger, not so much. It's much easier when they're younger because they're so excited to just go to work with dad. Uh, but once they kind of make that transition into their teenage years where they want to start feeling like they're more adult than kid, then you get a bit more pushback, and then it becomes more difficult. So in navigating that, because even though you raise all three kids the same, their personalities are vastly different and they respond to you differently. So coaching your own children from that aspect is no different than coaching other people's children, as far as kind of having to alter the way you communicate with them based on their personality and how you can get the most out of them.
How was your relationship with the parents of your students, other students that you were coaching at the same time you were coaching your kids? Because sometimes they look jealous, about the dedication, the time, and the talent they might have versus the talent that the other kids
You
have. How do you deal with that?
you definitely run into that, and because I was running a club back home in Louisiana, and having your kids in your junior program, you would get some parents who had some talented athletic kids, but not near the dedication as your children. And it's lower level junior tennis. There's always that kind of parental stupidity, for lack of a better way to put it, where you hear parents say, oh, well, he gives more time to his kids than my kid, that's why they're successful. And you know
Is it?
Of course, you're going to spend time with your children away from the private lessons and stuff. But so, yeah, you do deal with that a little bit. But I was fortunate. I had a pretty good relationship with most every parent. There's always that one off where somebody gets upset. But, I'm proud of the fact that like most of my pro players have stayed with me for 12 to 15 years. And a lot of my junior kids who took it seriously stayed with me for many, many years.
Share with us, Pat, what is the secret keys to have a good relationship with the parents, tennis parents?
It's just being able to communicate with them, let them know what their kid's doing, let them know how they need to. The overwhelming majority are pretty good. What gives tennis parents a bad name is always that one nut that you see at tournaments making
Yeah.
issues and trying to fight the battles for the kid. But to get along with the parents, you explain to them what you're doing. Uh, I've never been one to say to the parents that you've got to stay off the court and I don't want you involved. This is their place and my place. I've always let the parents be on the court so they can listen to what I'm saying. Uh, and you got to know when parents are overbearing, then, you try to keep them a little more at a distance without being offensive. But the parents who generally know to keep the distance and know they don't know a lot about tennis and they allow you to do your job, those are easy to let them on the court, pick up balls and be a part of it so they can just have little reminders to their kids when they're with them at tournaments.
But let me put you in this situation. You're talking to the student, you're your student, right? During
Right.
the lesson, but the parent is the father is next to you.
Right.
You feel comfortable with that?
Yes, as long as they are not, trying to coach the kid at the same time. If they're just listening, I don't have any problem with it. But you have a problem with it when they start telling the kid when you're in the middle of something, if they start telling the kid what to do. And then you got to just, be polite about saying, look, they they have a better understanding listening to me the way I explain it than you getting on to them about it where they get defensive because it's mom or dad. Yeah.
But don't you think it's a little destructive for the kids to have
Well,
the
it
parents?
definitely is. If the parent gets involved too much, it's absolutely counterproductive. Yeah,
Okay.
but I don't have any parents that like I steer away from those parents. To be honest with you, I'm in a situation now where I work for myself the last few years, and so you can politely turn those people that you think might be a headache away. Uh, so I don't put myself in a position to have to deal with people like that. To be honest with you, very often. And if they become like that, then you try to be polite and talking to them about the fact that they're doing more harm than good. And once in a while,
You
they listen for the most part, because they know that you produced a lot of the best players in the world, male and female, and traveled with them, and not just my kids. And so they're pretty good about understanding that I've done this a long time, and they'll let me do my job.
so Pat, do you exclusively in your academy work with top athletes, advanced players, or also junior development, the
No,
early stages?
yeah, the junior development as well as the pros. I still have the Danielle Collins, Heather Watson, Madison Bringle, Peyton Stearns works with a couple of our coaches, uh, and they all come in. I've got Hina Inoue over in Tunisia. She's in the semifinals tomorrow in a 15K with Jennifer Ellie, one of our other coaches. I've got a great staff. Paolo Lorenzi helps me full time, but he moved back to Italy for
Oh,
1 year.
oh,
And so he's been
Paolo.
with me for 2 years since he retired, but then he just took a job running the tournaments with the Italian Federation back home. So he's moved back home for a year. But I've got right now it's Ryan, myself, my daughter, Madison, Jennifer Ellie, Peter Polanski from Canada, who's obligated to Dennis Shapovalov 15 weeks or so this year, and he's still helping him a lot. And then I've got a guy named Stan Vok, Vovk, who's tremendous as one of the coaches. And his father has coached a lot of the top Russians, Kuznetsova when she won a couple of Grand Slams, Michael Yuzny, uh, Sergei Stakhovsky. So Stan was 350 in the world himself before he had a couple of shoulder surgeries. So I send him with Danielle some and things like that when she needs it.
Awesome. How many courts you have?
Right now we've got four. When we're literally under construction to have two more done by April, and we're slowly growing and doing that right
What is
now.
your ideal format of training? How many players per court for you?
You know, never more than three or four in a group setting. And the higher level they get, you try not to do much more than anything, but like maybe some 2-on-1 drills for a short period of time. But I'm big on one-on-one. You know, having two people on the court with me working with them, especially as they get to the higher levels.
Boys, girls, can they train together?
Yes, at the lower levels specifically. Now, once the boys get a bit overpowering, that's more difficult. Uh, you know, you don't want the boys to have to hold back and just keep balls in to keep the practice going properly. Especially if they're playing practice matches and, you know, you get a guy that can just hit bombs and the girl can't react to it. Uh, that's like anything else. I never mind. I grew up with three sisters and I have a daughter that was very good. And all three of my sisters were a high level Division I college players. So I grew up hitting with my sisters. You know, I did loads of baseline, you know, work hitting the cross courts and down the lines. If I just want to go groove, I see nothing wrong with that. My boys will hit in with Danielle, Heather, Madison Bringle, Hina. You know, Christian will come out and hit with them a ton when he's just working on, you know, timing the ball right
Are,
and hitting a lot of
Pat,
balls.
are you proponent of bringing sparring partners for the girls, junior players, or for the boys, or you want to have just pro versus pro training?
A proponent of bringing girls
Uh,
into practice with me.
Sparring, no, sparring partners to the players. You know, junior players,
Yeah,
college players.
I get sparring partners with mine. Like I have a good relationship with all the other coaches in town. And so we actually, like I had one of the coaches in town send three players over to my place yesterday to train with my players to play practice matches where I'm just watching them. And that's what I say. I like the practice match playing. But, you know, I always have gotten along well with all the other coaches. I've never, you know, I've kept to myself and never had a problem with other coaches. So I'm a big proponent of getting other coaches, players playing in with us, inviting them over as well. And letting them, especially in the junior development phase, letting them enjoy that a lot.
Hmm, fantastic. Training boys versus training girls. What would you tell us? If you have to run a conference, you go to South America now to run a clinic for 300 coaches, Brazil, Argentinians, guys. If you train girls, do this. If you train boys, do that.
Well, I think coaching is coaching. I don't put I think if you know what you're doing, you train them the way they need to be coached based on their game and their personality. Now, with guys, you are a bit more harsh than girls. I think mentally, the way I talk to a girl, you politely explain, well, you want to do this instead of this, and here's why. With a guy, you might say, God, that's so stupid, and tell him why. So the verbiage might be a little different, but they don't take it to heart. They know, you know. I just think from that standpoint, that's about the only way. You know, coaching is coaching, and you got to know the player and know their game styles, and teach them, you know, the strengths and weaknesses, you know, and how to build points and all that.
High school, homeschoolers. What do you think? What is your point about it? You take
My kids were homeschooled, so I'm a big
who
proponent of that, and I say that my
and let me ask you
boys
this.
were, and my daughter wasn't.
Yeah, if you have to advise a parent, a kid,
Yeah.
he's asking you, I want to put my daughter, my son, Pat, in homeschooling system. How good they should be to do it?
Well, in today's world, there's a lot more that goes into it than just the sports. Are you trying to get them away from the stuff they're teaching now in schools, or if they want to homeschool for tennis, uh, if it depends on the end goal. When parents have enough money to where the college degree doesn't necessarily matter, where the kids may go into the family business anyway, whether they have a degree or not, uh, then if they have enough money in that instance, it doesn't matter. But if you're looking at middle income to lower income people that you're dealing with, then it's very important that they need to go to school and get their degree. And so, we did it different. I was fortunate. My wife was an actual school teacher in a high school for 2 or 3 years before we got married. So she homeschooled the boys. She homeschooled my daughter for a year or two. And then my daughter decided she wanted to go to high school at the schools locally here. So she went to school, went to Mississippi State, got her master's degree. She was a kinesiology major. She made it all the way through school with 1B in 6 years. And she's got her master's degree. That's the path she chose. So that's the path we let her take. My boys wanted to homeschool because they were, they excelled at a young age, and IMG signed them when they were like 13 and 15. And at that time, I was working with John Newcomb and running his academy in New Braunfels, Texas. And so Mr. Newcomb has spent his career with IMG. So he actually negotiated my children's contracts for them and made sure there was everything in there that needed to be, where they weren't just signing their life away, so to speak. And if they didn't make it, they weren't taken care of.
Nice. But can a coach teach how to win to a student, or is something that is born with the student, the player, the
A
the
little
the,
bit
the,
of
the
both.
competitor?
Some people get it more quickly. I think everything is taught. I mean, everything is learned to a certain extent. Like you can teach speed to a certain extent, but you can't teach a very average athlete with average speed to beat somebody with a lot of speed. That's never
Mm,
going to happen. But to a minimal degree, you can increase things by having the proper running technique, by having the proper strokes and all that, and make them better, as good as they can for what their ability allows.
okay. Um, I heard that USA players, men's, they haven't won a Grand Slam since Andy Roddick,
Right,
2003. It's been 2 decades.
right.
The women's, they did it. They won. Several women's won
Yeah.
Grand Slams. But what is your take about it? Because everybody says the following, Pat. American players, they could win because you have Federer, Nadal, Djokovic. They were dominating the world of tennis. But look, we have Murray winning a Grand Slam, Babrinka, Del Potro, Gaudio. Now we have Sinner, Alcaraz, Medvedev, Dominic Thiem. So why we don't see any American male winning a single Grand Slam?
Well, it has been a good while. Andy Roddick was obviously the last one at the U.S. Open. Um, uh, you know, I think you do need to get people to learn to be out of their comfort zone. To be honest with you, I think this U.S. group coming up at the moment, there's a few guys in there that I think will have an opportunity to win a Grand Slam. I think Taylor Fritz and Sebi Korda, Francis. I think there's some guys with the ability to get that done. Tommy Paul's an unbelievably good athlete. I'm sure I'm missing one or two, but there's a slew of good Americans coming up right now. And the trick is, once you get to that level, uh, I think the stamina becomes incredibly important. The fitness becomes very important for them to be able to mentally and physically endure 3 out of 5 sets for eight strong matches. Uh, but as far as why Americans haven't, uh, there are cultural differences everywhere. And I think, and just give an example, I think there's so many foreign players in college because so many of the American coaches did not want to deal with for lack of a better way to phrase it, to be honest, with the spoiled American kids. They felt like when they brought foreign players in that they were a little more,
Yeah,
generally speaking, this is not for everybody. Well, they were
yeah.
more hungry. Uh, they were well educated. They would come in, take care of the school part of it. They just seemed more mature for a freshman college age student, generally speaking. Obviously, that's not the case all the way around. Um, People ask me why my kids were successful, and I had a lot of people say the people that know you know why, because you're more of a disciplinarian, which is not necessarily the norm in America. That a lot of the parents try to be their kid's friend too much rather than, the respectful disciplinarian. But these are generalizations for trying to train elite athletes and understanding the commitment at a very young age. Obviously, you want them to enjoy it, but as they show the aptitude for taking it very high, then you've got to look at it and train differently and treat them differently.
Okay. Yeah, we have some great players coming out of college. John Isner, right?
Loads of them. Loads of them.
Collins, right? Danielle.
Yeah.
Danielle, who played
Yeah,
in college.
Danielle won 2 NCAA championships. Renderneck out of Texas A&M. Steve Denton is a great friend of mine. Austin Krajicek was number 1 in the world in doubles a month or two ago.
Cameron Norrie, the British guy, plays
Cam
from.
Norrie was at TCU with
Yeah,
David Roditi. I've followed the college tennis a ton. I played at Oklahoma
yeah.
State for Coach Wadley, and we had a top 10 team for a little while. And yeah, but it's a little different now. Like when I was coming up, uh, college tennis is doing pretty good, turning out players. But back then, there was not a limit to the matches you could play. Now there's a limit. When I was coming out, college tennis just turned out, top 100 players in droves, much more than today because of the rules difference. Like I would go to Tennessee and play Paul Annacone. You get to the NCAA tournament, you play Ricky Leach. I played Jay Berger, Richard Matiszewski. Jay Berger was playing 1. I think when we played Clemson, I played Richard Matiszewski at 2. All of these guys were top 10, top 20, I played Mike DePalmer. He was 21 in the world. Annacone was 16 in the world. Jay Berger was top 10 in the world. Matiszewski was top 100. It was like they pointed out now like it's a big deal, but it was incredibly commonplace in the 80s for the best college guys to end up like Steve Denton, who's at A&M now. He was 11 in the world in singles, 2 in the world in doubles. Flack, Seguso, McEnroe, Connor, they all played college tennis back then.
So I have 3 questions. I want to take you to the tennis court and listen about you as a coach. Strength versus weaknesses. What is your point you take about how much time spending on strength and training versus? Oh, sorry. Amir, father of one of said Ben Shelton is different from the generation before. Expects him to win a slam. Why?
He's another
He's asking you.
American coming up that I forgot about. I've actually watched him over the last few years because I know Brian a little bit. Played against Brian a couple of times growing up because he grew up in the southern section where I did. So I played against Ben's father. He's one that I forgot to mention earlier that I feel like could absolutely win a Grand Slam. Incredibly talented. But tell me the question again.
Yeah, strength versus weaknesses.
How to
What is
set up
your
points that way?
how much time you think we should spend in working strength in practice versus weaknesses?
I believe the really everybody has strengths and weaknesses. It doesn't matter if it's a forehand, backhand, serve, volley, or overhead. It may be in movement as a great counterpuncher. A David Ferrer, ungodly, really good mover, but people don't realize he could go to the net too. He was, game styles are different, but everybody has to, for me, the great players make their strengths stronger and their weaknesses adequate. Meaning that, when a guy develops a huge forehand, backhand, it doesn't matter what it is, they can rely on that even when they're stretched out, hit the big running forehand. And you just seem to have a feel on that side, whether it's because you have your dominant eye on your left side or your right side or whatever. I think the great players, know what their strengths are and they know how to play to it, but they make their weaknesses adequate enough to where when somebody doesn't hit a tremendous shot to get them off balance on their weaker side, they can hurt you even on their weaker side.
Fantastic. What a statement. It's going to be the reel of the topic, the talk, what you said about strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah.
Plan B, Pat, plan B, please teach us, because we hear about if the plan A is not working, right?
Right.
We should move to plan B, move what is the plan B? Because it's kind of confusing sometimes to explain the students what should be their plan B.
Well, your plan B is like I try to develop an all-around game in all of my players. It's weird because I never practice doubles a lot, but I've got a bunch of Grand Slam champions in doubles, like Ryan and Michael Venus. Michael Venus grew up in our house, so I coached him since he was a child. That's how he and Ryan ended up winning the French Open. Uh, Heather Watson won the mixed doubles at Wimbledon and made the finals of the mix the next year. Danielle Collins made the semifinals of Wimbledon doubles last year. Most people don't realize she's actually an excellent doubles player. But and I think it's because I've taught them an all-around game. So when they get into doubles, they don't feel uncomfortable. Even though I don't put a lot of practice time on it, just developing an all-around game when you have them for a long time to make sure. And to get back to your question, a plan A versus a plan B. Everybody has strengths that they try to set points up. But if you feel like the matchup's not working, then you've got to, if you have a strong backhand, but it happens to go into somebody's strength that's a strong backhand and they're beating you on it that day, then you got to be able to go off speed, use the slice, low, short, middle to make them hit up, whether it's going high and heavy, looking to transition and see if they pass well on it. Uh, a lot of things, a lot of people's plan B is looking to attack when they're not banging the big ground strokes. But what I see in today's game, when people think that they're getting beat at what they normally do well, whether it's because their opponent is outplaying them at that, or because they're off on what they normally do well, when they move to a plan B, they've got to do it with 100%. Physical ability. It's teaching the kids that when you feel like mentally you've got to do something different and change up what's happening to get back in the match, you can't put, a 90% effort into your plan B. It's got to be 100% effort. Because even in developing like the futures challenger level players now, when they need to change their game style in the middle of a match because what they're doing is not working, that's essentially kind of to me going to a plan B kind of. You got to do it wholeheartedly, not half-heartedly.
You were mentioning doubles, so many doubles
Right.
champions that you had in your
Mhm.
background. Give us the few secrets, keys to be a great doubles player.
Well, I think it's just, having the hands around the net, just teaching them to volley properly, having as little ragged head movement as they can on the volleys and learning to just have the feel in the hands to use the front part of the court, to be able to deaden the ball in front of the deep person, play, yet have enough sting on the volley to play through the net person on the other side, being able to spot your serve well to set your partner up around the net. Uh, just understanding all of those small things in doubles that you need to do well.
Serve and volley still alive, Pat?
Not as much in today's double. When I grew up, whether it was singles or doubles, I went in on both serves. And I had a one-hand backhand, but I taught my kids totally different. I taught them how to serve and volley. Ryan was very adept at going forward. Christian's having some success in doubles right now. My daughter Madison has her points in doubles. But a lot of when Ryan won the French Open in doubles, they were serving and staying back and hitting huge forehands. But you still got to have a net man. I always firmly believe that good doubles teams, there's a quarterback who's very dominant and very good with everything, and there's a guy that's kind of a role player, so to speak, that's solid with his serve, solid with the returns, makes the volleys they should, but he's not necessarily the quarterback that's just all over the net poaching and picking off balls and having that feel. The best doubles players in the world, when you watch the Bryan brothers, they were all over the net. The Woodies, they were all over the net. And to have a dominant team in doubles again, you're going to find a team that's all over the net. I don't think that part of it's going to change.
How about the women's?
Uh, a little different. They're not going to poach as much, but the top doubles players, even in women's, are very adept at moving around the net and running their plays. It's big to have signals now and run your plays. And
we lost, but maybe he had a phone call. I hope he will be returning. This is amazing information. Pat, can you hear me? So maybe he has some issues with the Wi-Fi, or maybe he's in a phone call. This is a great coach. Oh, he left. Oh, so I will not leave, guys, because we will lose all the content of the interview if I leave. So I'm gonna wait for Pat to rejoin soon. He talked about strengths and weaknesses and plan B, college tennis, parents, parenting, relationship coach, parents on the court. Really amazing information. So, hi guys, ¿cómo están? How are you doing? Yeah, I mean, Pat left. There should be some issues. I hope he will rejoin. Pat, are you there? Or because I don't want to finish yet, I want to spend a few more minutes. No, he's not. Okay, okay. I'm going to wait a few minutes. If he doesn't come back, I will have to leave. I will share the video anyways. Pat is back. He's back. There you go.
Hey,
You're back.
my phone overheated and shut off until it cooled off. I'm sorry, so I'll just hold the phone now.
Okay, Pat. Thank you. I was scared. I said, no way.
No, but
He's leaving me.
sorry about that.
No, no. I thought you didn't like
No,
the talks. So you left.
no, I was loving it, and then I'm sorry
Hey,
about that. My phone
I have
overheated and
Tilda
shut off.
Wilson here.
Yes, yes,
So
and
Pat, yeah, we have a few more minutes. I love it. I hope you're having a good
yes,
time.
very good.
Thank you,
Enjoying it
Pat.
great.
Thank you. Okay, let me ask you this. How painful or not was for your son Ryan retired from professional tennis?
Well, it's always painful. I think anybody that has a very successful career as he has, you spend the last year or so in limbo on how long should I stay with it.
Mm.
He's only 31, so he's young, but he started at a very young age. I think Carlos Alcaraz just broke his record a couple years ago. Until Carlos came along, Ryan had been the last 15-year-old to make it through qualies and win an ATP tour match before he turned 16 years old. Uh, and then Alcaraz broke his record by a few months. Before that, it was Gasquet and Nadal. He was out there a long time, and even though he's only 31, but yeah, it's difficult. But I think it makes it easier to make the transition when you get into coaching because you're still around tennis every day, and he loves helping other people. So it's a pretty smooth transition for him.
Sorry, Pat,
Uh,
did he take any break from tennis after retiring?
no, just kind of, went straight into coaching. He went to the U.S. Open and Fed Cup with Danielle Collins because she's trained with me since, for the better part of 16 years. She and Heather Watson and Maddie Bringle and some of them. I've had that whole group for 15, 16 years. And they have to go on the road with other people because I don't travel. Uh, so staying in the game. With coaching, I think it makes it a much smoother transition than quitting cold turkey and getting out of tennis completely.
So, of course, he learned everything from you as a coach. But how about him as a coach? Is he asking you for advice? Dad, how should I do this as a coach?
As
Coach
a
to coach
coach,
now.
not really, because everything that he's heard from me most of his life, he understands it, so he does a great job of explaining things. He also does a very, very good job of relating to the players that he's working with and understanding. He's seen me do it every day of his life, so he's been very good there. I haven't really had to try to advise him at all. He's got a very good idea of what he's doing coaching wise. And
Wonderful. Look, now we deal. I don't know if you agree with this, but I'm finding the kids are less tolerant to frustration right now. Very anxious. They want everything fast, everything quick.
Right.
I've seen that trend in practice during practice time. They get upset, frustrated so
Very,
easily.
yeah, very much.
How do you deal with that? How do you deal with that? Those kids in practice.
Well, you just keep trying to find different ways to get them to stay in the moment. Understand it's a marathon; it's not a sprint. You know, you- the biggest thing that I think people need to do as coaches, um, put a much bigger emphasis on development of their game when they're younger, and don't the winning will come. Don't emphasize winning at a young age so much. Emphasize more of the development side of it. Uh,
In
you know,
Pat, sorry, in what age they should start more focused about results?
well, once you get up to that Division I college level and professional level, then you still got to emphasize the process. And try and get them to stay in the right. I tell mine, you know, when you everybody chokes. If you've played 10 matches in your life, you've choked at least 3 of them. There's no way around choking. You got to be able to talk about it. You got to be able to deal with it. And you try different ways of getting through to them to stay in the moment and play one quality point at a time, whether it's it, teaching them to keep the score in the back of their mind in the process of winning, meaning their strategy during a match in the front of their mind. And so many people have trouble closing matches out because they'll do the right things for an hour and a half to 2 hours. In the moment they get in a position to win up a set in 5-4, uh, then they switch that and the score becomes too prevalent in the front of their mind and the process and strategy of winning goes to the back of their mind. And even though they're trying to do the same things, they do it a little bit tighter with the grip. Uh, they try to get it a little bit safer and hope somebody goes away and chokes it away for them instead of just continuing the thought process of here's my shot. This is what I got to hit. I've got to keep my feet quick and my hands calm and just continue to hit the shots that I'm supposed to without just trying to get it in and hope like hell they go away for you. You got to just keep playing. My biggest deal, I try to tell people the score should never dictate racket head speed or energy. I never want to see you in a position to close out a match and the racket head speed slows down. That's when you see ragged head speed stop a lot is when people are trying to finish matches. And I never want to see the ragged head speed stop or the energy stop when you go down a set and a break. That's when you see energy generally drop. And so if you watch a player play, the ragged head speed should always be the same and the energy should always be the same. At least that's what you ought to be striving for.
Yeah, we see you're talking about racket head speed. You see a lot of videos on Instagram, TikTok, coaches teaching racket head speed, doing
Right,
drills just about that. It looks like the only topic in tennis
right,
nowadays.
right.
How much we can teach a student to have higher racket head speed, more velocity on the ball, if they don't naturally have it?
Well, when it comes to ragged head speed and generating pace, you've got to make sure they're always properly balanced, using the legs properly, rotating the hips and shoulders. And a lot of people tell you how to set up on a ball, but the weight transfer is the key to creating the ragged head speed and keeping control. I tell mine that you don't create pace by gripping it tighter and pulling your front side open. It's not like I think hand-eye coordination sports like tennis, golf, and baseball, people have a tendency when they want to hit with power to pull their front side off the shot. Um, and so you try to teach them, the best players in the world with hand-eye coordination sports like golf, tennis, and baseball, they keep their head very still and their body's calm. But then when it's time to fire the ragged head through, their backside rotates through it properly. And I tell mine there's 5 things. It's not just about balance and weight transfer, shot selection has a difference in it too. The ragged hit speed you're trying to create depends on the height of the ball when you make contact with it. The lower the ball, the more outside brush you're going to get on it. So you can't try to hit it hard and flatten it out. So there's a lot of factors that go into the ragged head speed. The weight transfer has everything to do with it.
But are you uh, agree or proponent of those hand fed when the coaches drop the ball and the kid is going, fast ball over ball like that, or you
I,
don't do that?
I do some of that. Yes. If I feel like I need to teach people to go down and get, I'll hand feed it very low, like right at their knees, just to work on getting them to drop the back knee and brush the outside of the ball. If somebody plays too flat with too much pace, I'll do a lot of drop hits very low at their knees and make them learn to relax the grip and brush the outside of the ball to create that feel, because too many people want to play hard and flat. And then if that's off, they don't know how to generate extra spin but stay under control by relaxing the hand and hitting the outside of it when it's lower and making the adjustments necessary.
From the tactical point of view, what is the difference between boys and girls, women's and men's? Tactically speaking.
Tactically, generally speaking, the girls sometimes look like they're just trying to hit it as hard as they can and you know, just more or less blow somebody off the court. Uh, That's why when you find a Steffi Graf who can hit beautiful slices and mixed speeds and has world-class speed, uh, she didn't have to hit 15 topspin backhands a match. And I put her right there as one of the best 3 or 4 women in the history of the game, So, um, but as far as tactics go, when you find those girls with beautiful touch that can use the front part of the court, they're generally very successful. But a lot of them play through the court. The men, don't get me wrong, the men play big serves, but they have the heavy kicks, the heavy slices, and you see a lot of them can use the front part of the court with heavy, angles because they grew up the Europeans seem to do well growing up on the clay and playing those angles through the side fence. When you push them near the alley and you're staying too deep, they can run the ball off the court and do those things a little bit more than most of the girls you will see.
Somebody that you knew very well, Mr. Nick Ballatieri, rest in
Right.
peace.
Yes.
What legacy Nick left to all of us, Pat?
Well, I loved him, and used to play golf with him, and he loved my kids and was great. When Christian had his first surgery and missed a few years as a youngster, he was the one that took care of Christian and got us set up at the Mayo Clinic up in Rochester, Minnesota. And as a human being, his biggest legacy that most people will not talk about as much, they just know him as the famous tennis guy. But for me personally, his biggest legacy was what a great heart and human being he was. He took care of Christian like you can't believe when he had some serious medical issues for a while as a younger kid and got it all set up for us. But his other legacy obviously is 10 world number ones and understanding the importance of relationships with people and not just knowledge of the game. He himself in his last 5 years in all of his interviews would say, I wasn't the best tactical coach or this, that, and the other, but I understood people and I got the most out of them. And for me, his biggest legacy was what a genuinely good human being he was. And that made people want to play for him. Brian Gottfried was one of his first in the younger years with Jimmy Arias, Carling Bassett, and them. And he said, he lives here in town, and he would say, when you were around Nick, he just made you feel like you could fly. And that speaks to the aspect of him relating to people very well to get the most out of them, to make them most excited to be at practice every day.
A lot of people, Pat, misunderstood when Andre Agassi said, "I hate tennis" in his book. It was
Yeah.
very controversial.
Yeah.
Do you think that he really hated tennis?
No, he didn't. McEnroe used to say that a lot growing up, but you see them doing exos and being in tennis all the time now. And it's everybody, I think for most people, that's a form of frustration and dealing with the anxiety you get from an individual year-round sport. It's how everybody deals with anxiety different. And that was, to me, their way that they dealt with anxiety. Some people are more introvert, some people are extrovert. Everybody's different. And I think more than anything, that's probably their way of dealing with frustration. And for sure, when you put so many years of your life into something and accomplish what people like that did, uh, there's no doubt you want to take a break from it, which is what they did.
How about your boys? They were extrovert, introvert, Ryan, Christian? How do you define
Ryan
them?
is like his dad. He's a little temperamental. He can get a little excited, which I don't mean that in a negative way. I hope not, because he's pretty similar to me. Uh, and Christian is a little more introverted, like his mom, and my daughter is a little bit. Um, Ryan is like me. He tells you exactly what he thinks and wears his heart on his sleeve, and can't understand if he upsets you, why you can't get over it in 5 minutes.
So I bet you
And
guys have some fights on the court
sure,
when
we
they.
did. Yeah, I mean that's pretty commonplace. When you're working with your kids and
Yeah.
they want you at a match, but then you're not real happy with the way they're acting or something, and they're in the moment in a match, they're going to lash out at you. That's part of it to me. I don't have a problem dealing with any personalities from that end. If you're competitive and you understand what it's like, you don't get very offended by different
Yeah, but
personalities.
when you went back home, when they were kids, that was probably
Well,
difficult, right? Because for your
it is.
wife,
It was impossible not to take it home. A lot of people say, "Oh, we never discuss tennis at home." Well, if you're at the highest level, that's impossible, because when you have practices where you've gotten on your children and you go home, they're going to go straight to mom and be upset with dad, and it's impossible that it doesn't affect dinner. Um, that's living on fantasy island to say that doesn't happen, but you learn to deal with it. And Ryan and I have had many battles. I think a couple of them were public, and so it doesn't take much to look it up on YouTube. He's got mad at me and I've got mad at him, and that's the way it is. It's not a negative thing to me.
not,
It's
not,
part. It was a bit like Andy Reid and Travis Kelsey in the Super Bowl the other day. And
yeah.
I mean, when you're in a competitive environment and you care, um, some people look at it as it's terrible, and some people think it's no big deal. It just depends on what side of the fence you're on.
And you're working now together in the same time,
Yes,
coaching.
yes, yeah. We're at the same place,
But
Ryan and my daughter,
who is
Jennifer
running the
Ellie.
show?
We all do. We
Okay.
all kind of have our own little deal. We have specific players. My daughter has her players. Ryan has his players. It's good to have one voice the majority of time, but it's also fine to, somebody needs, like Ryan's in Delray with Jordan Thompson right now and was in Dallas with him last week. Marinko Matosevic is his main coach. But Marinko couldn't make these 2 weeks, and Marinko's a good
Okay.
friend of ours, so he asked Ryan to take his place for 2 weeks. Uh, so when you need to help other people, but generally speaking, we all have like our little. I've got a certain players with Peter Polanski who's helping me coach. I've got certain players with Stan who's helping me coach. Stan Vogt. My daughter has some. Ryan has his, and I have mine. So that's. But we help each other when we need to.
So how many hours a day you teach, Pat, right now?
I'm still on the court. I don't think 60 is old. For me, it's not a problem for me to start at 8 in the morning and go till dark. I still like doing 8 to 10 or 11 hours a day actually on the court. That's just what I've done for 35 years. I
And
love it.
how many
And
more years are you planning to do that?
honestly, I'll probably die on the court at some point. I'll do it till I'm 90 as long as I'm healthy. I'll do it forever. I have no retirement plans. I still love getting up every day trying to develop professional level players and get people to see their maximum potential, whatever it is. You know,
Awesome, awesome. Are you still learning?
I think every day you're alive, you're learning. It doesn't matter what you're doing. Yeah. I mean, if somebody says they know it all right now, you better get way away from that person.
Fantastic.
Yeah, but we're all learning. There's nobody alive
Agreed.
that's not still learning, you know.
100%. Few more questions. You start your kids with the colorful balls, Pat, when they were little ones?
No, they didn't even have that when the boys were that age. I don't believe, but I wouldn't have done it anyway. Yeah, I started mine out at 2, 3 years old, and they would go to work with me and get a racquetball racket and just tap on the wall. And if I had a lesson canceled or something, I would just go stand on that side of the court with them, teach them how to hold it, and let them tap it over. And as long, I've never been one of those that believed in burnout. I think a burnout is just another word for people who don't want to put the work in and they want to quit. Everybody gets tired of their job at some point and needs a break. That's a different story. But I just always thought the great Dominicans in baseball, Tiger Woods in golf. Well, it doesn't matter what sport you go to. If you love doing it and you don't look at it as it's a pain in the rear end, then do it as much as you want. That's why I still coach the hours I do. I love it. I played when I was growing up, starting at 8 years old. I played 350 days a year, and I coach 350 days a year, and it's just because I love it, and that's what I do. So.
Wow. Do you think playing, teaching with the colorful balls, red, orange, green, that are making better players, future better players?
I don't know if it is or not. I think at a young age, if they're not physically strong enough to hit a normal ball and it may hurt their wrist or what have you. I don't know enough about the color balls to give an honest opinion. I've never used them. And I'm not saying it's good or bad. I just really don't have much of an opinion, but I would think for my kids, I never had any wrist trouble, never
Just
had any
this one,
stroke trouble.
all the time.
Yeah, yeah. Just
Okay.
just get a regular tennis ball and teach them how to hit it properly. Get the proper size racket and grip for them to be able to control it, and let them just have fun
So
hitting it.
do you believe in junior rackets, of course?
Of course, yeah, yeah,
Okay. Okay.
sure.
How old a boy is a question that parents are asking me. Daniel, how old my son, my daughter should be to start using an adult racket?
I think that everybody grows at a different physical, strength. It just depends on when they're physically strong enough to do it. I had mine in a regular racket before they were 8 or 9. But make sure it's very, very light. I'd be lying if I said I could remember that 100%. Just whenever they wanted to use it, I let them use it. I can't even remember the specific age, but I think it was around 8 or 9.
Wow. As sports psychologist, do your sons, kids work with a sports
No,
psychologist?
Ryan did for a year or two, and he got good benefit from it for a short period of time. That's like everything else. There's more than one way to do everything in life, and a sports psychologist can be tremendous for certain players and detrimental to others. It just depends on your personality. They're very good for people who need to channel in on something, and I don't know if they help people who really have an idea of what they want and are strong-minded, and it can make you overthink. It was like when Sabalenka won the Australian Open, not this year but last year, and they asked her about the sports psychologist, and she said she had quit going because everything they had told her was true, but it was also nothing different than her coach had told her, and she had to make up her mind to make that change or not. And there's because for me, honestly, the high level tennis coaches are also psychologists. But I think if you take the top 10 players in the world, men or women, half of them believe in it and half of them don't. It's sort of like, how should you hold the racket? Well, there's no right or wrong answer. You have continental, eastern, western, and semi-western grips for a reason. Everybody likes to hit it differently. And I think sports psychology is very similar. I don't think you can, go wrong if you like it, and if you don't believe in it, you're not going to listen to it, so it's not going to help you.
And the last question, and I'll let you go because you have to go back to the
No,
court. And I'm very thankful for your time. It was amazing. 1 hour already. 1 hour
yes,
talking.
that's hopefully I didn't keep you too long.
No, I love it. I could be three
No,
hours if I
yeah,
want, if I can. I want to ask you about winning a match without playing well. It's very common to listen to players. I didn't play my best. I didn't play well, but I was able to win. Champions win without playing at their best. How we can we teach that, Pat?
yes, you can, but
How?
Experience is the greatest teacher in life, and so they need to play a ton of matches. You got to watch them even in practice, and explain situational tennis. But there's no question the greatest players in the world are the ones that play without their win without their best stuff. If you talk about Major League Baseball, the pitchers win when they don't have their best stuff. Their breaking ball pitching is not breaking. Tennis, they win when they don't feel quite precise and heavy with their shots. But there's no question, everybody in the world wants to be perfect. The best players in the world are the ones that can deal with being imperfect the best. So, and I think that's where you find your Djokovic's, your Nadal's, your Federer's. I think you see it in the center. But no question, the best players in the world find a way to get it done. They know they're not playing well, but they find a way to stay in the match, and they can elevate at the right moment to play the big points well when they need to most of the time. You can never do it all the time. Nobody can. So you got to deal with it. But I think that's probably the number one thing. The best players in the world know how to deal with being imperfect the best.
But can you train that?
Yeah, I mean it's a mindset. You got to understand. Like I'm not against people getting mad, but you got about a 3 to 5 second rebound window. And then get it out of your system. I mean, some people need to do that. Some people are very stoic and don't need to do it. So it's everybody has their own way that they deal with things mentally. Some people can't keep it locked in. They got to let it go a little bit. And like anything in life, there's too much and not enough of, letting it go.
How's Ryan in that regard, in that department?
Well, most of the time he would get upset. I didn't have a problem with that, but he took it too far a few times. He'll tell you that. Everybody in the world's seen that. But there's other players who have. I spent a little time with Marcus Bagdatis, and everybody's seen him smash rackets. McEnroe did. My son Ryan did. Christian not as much. Madison not as much. But people get upset. Everybody knows Danielle Collins because she's so feisty. But that's what makes her tick. At the beginning of last year and stuff, we talked a lot. I said, you got to get back to being yourself. You got to stop worrying about what people say on TV. And just be you and keep your fire, get fired up. That's the way you perform your best. So, because she was very stoic at last year's Australian Open and went through a spell there, and so we had to talk a lot about going back to being herself.
Hey, hey, Pat, before I let you go, I have a question from Chile, South America.
Sure,
Thank you. They said, greeting from Chile to you. How can we stay focused when you have all the court against you? I mean, probably he's talking about the crowd.
sure,
What do you,
sure.
what is your answer to him? What would you tell
Well,
him?
you see Novak, almost thrives on it, gets better because of it. It's that chip on his shoulder in a positive way that makes him want to prove people wrong. It's just that mindset he has to prove, 10,000 people wrong instead of 5 people wrong. But it can be, it's almost like Davis Cup when you're the road team. You got to deal with that stuff, Um, and there's a, a locked in channeled mental capacity you must have to play your game and just stay locked in on a strategy that you have for that opponent and continue to try and execute your game plan and win or lose the point. Don't give them reasons to get on you more. That's where fiery people, when the crowd is against them, have a tendency to make it tougher on themselves by, you know, maybe not always understanding my fire can work against me if I get all these people riled up and yelling at me when I'm serving and cheering against me. Then it can kind of take you mentally out of the zone that you want to be in.
But the last one, and thank you once again, is going to be uploaded on my YouTube channel. So I'm going to join the link later.
Yeah.
And I hope we stay in touch for the future.
That'd be great. And I sure appreciate you having me. And Ryan and Madison are happy to come on at some
I will
point themselves.
love it. I will
Yeah.
love it. Now you felt experience so you can tell them what it's about.
I certainly will, and they can see this and know. And I certainly appreciate you having me
No,
on.
I
It's a
love it. But let
pleasure
me
having.
ask you before you leave,
Sure.
if you have to define the sport of tennis, how do you say what is tennis? If you have to explain to people, tennis is this. What would you say?
It's the greatest gift my father ever gave me in his life. He introduced me to tennis, and from that day forward, I've done it for 350 days a year, literally every year of my lifetime, and I'll do it until I die. Um, but the sport of tennis is, I think it teaches you incredible. Ways of dealing with life because you're on your own. I think tennis, people don't understand. It's probably other than boxing and wrestling. But tennis is a year-round individual sport. I don't think doubles or any team sport can be considered tougher than any individual sport because no matter how much you hurt when you lose in a team sport, you can always rationalize losing. Somebody helped you lose. That's why so many people gravitate toward team sports. An individual year-round sport it can be depressing. You go through a
Mm.
lot of ups and downs, and that's where you got to I told my kids when they first got into tennis, don't play this game if you can't handle the highs and lows. When you get to a high level, it's going to be depressing, whether you're going through injuries, whether you're going through a funk for 4 months, not playing well. Uh, and so the highs and lows, I just think, I don't know of another sport that goes year round that demands as much physicality and mental as tennis.
Just last one for sure. I'm curious about having your expertise, your passion, knowledge, and proven results. Have you ever been invited by the USTA to run clinics to
Not
coaches?
necessarily clinics. They did invite me up. I went and spoke there a few years back, but I don't know if it was USTA based. I'm not sure who invited me. I flew up there and spoke at a women's coaches conference because they knew I had Danielle Collins, Madison Bringle, Heather Watson, and a lot of players like that. That was 4 or 5 years ago. And I flew up there to speak at a women's coaches conference. But honestly, I can't tell you who invited me. I can't remember.
Uh,
Um,
okay.
I'm always happy to speak at conferences and do
No,
clinics
because
and coaches
you,
and things of that nature. Yeah.
if I will be the USTA president or whatever, you will be one of the first people that would invite because
Yeah.
you have an amazing experience as a father, as a coach. And tell me, what makes you a great coach? Everybody says that you're a great coach.
You know, I don't know. Hopefully it's because they trust me. I think for you to keep, high level professional players around you, even high level junior players that end up playing high level D1 college tennis, they gotta trust you and know you as a person, and they gotta know. I think a coach's number one job to get the most out of players is making sure that you're the right kind of person that they need to be around, and set a good example on how you go about not just your work but dealing with people and dealing with situations, and to get the most out of players, they got to really trust you.
But thank you so much. Somebody's inviting you to the Texas, USPTA Texas. They said, come to this summer.
Well, when I was running John Newcomb's academy, we actually spent 4 years there when I was running Nuke's academy. And I love Nuke. He's a typical Aussie.
Okay.
That was the best times of our lives when the kids were growing up. And so we actually spent 4 years, 4.5 years in New Braunfels, Texas. So we loved it there.
Fantastic. But thank you so much. I don't know how
Hey,
much to
thanks
say.
so much. Thanks so much for having me, and happy to come back anytime. Really grateful for you putting me on.
And please, no, of course, and tell your whole family, wife, hi from me, from
I
Daniel,
sure will.
and Spats, and I'm looking forward to talk to your kids.
Hey, thanks a lot, and see you
Thank
soon. Thanks,
you,
Daniel.
Pat.
Talk
Thank you,
soon.
everybody. Bye bye.
No
Take care.
worries. Bye-bye.